Hello, everyone. This is part two of the talk, which, in some sense, I did get to finish because I had to run somewhere. Okay. I have to probably record these two talks and then take them off and edit them and send them again. But I'm going to continue. I remember the last thing I was speaking about was how this world is a sort of mirror of existence to the original awareness of it. You see, there are moments you cough and moments you don't. Yeah. What I want to say, and in some sense emphasize with this title, when nature reminds you of your truth, I just want to point out that an aspect of our intelligence functions naturally, and eventually, after searching the labyrinth of knowledge, one comes to the conclusion that the moment is where their certainty is found. And in every moment of your life, you are in some sense carrying the past and in some sense building the future. And when you understand this, you will understand the influence of your decision making. You begin to wonder about your preferences, your interests, and you begin to see how nature is moving through you. This is very phenomenal because it seemed to be a curiosity of the ancient mystics, many yogis. In some sense, they ran towards silence and stillness and observation to see how the moment arises, to see how their intelligence arises. And eventually, those who were considered awake were people who began to notice a sort of self generation at work in what they think is other. So, what that means is right now, you could be looking outside and you could be looking at, let's say, a person walking the street, and you could be like, man, that guy looks happy, you know? Yet, one does not know how that individual consciousness is experiencing the world. And so, in some sense, the subtler implications of the world, the significance of the world exists in our subjective domain. It exists it is self-created and it is created to be kept. As if just like your hand is holding an elevator door open, your attention requires to exist through a certain design to allow new designs to emerge. So for me, I can say my interest occurred when I noticed that the mind doesn't know itself. And when I said, what I mean by that is that this character, this individual in the moment that I consider myself to be is not the whole moment. Yeah, not that it's not the whole moment, it does not encompass the unknown aspects of reality that are either bigger than our scope or in some sense not in our scope. When you look at history, for me, it's kind of like a mass sculpting process. When I look at the history of civilization, it seems like nature, in some sense, by having human beings be born, in some sense, found a way to move its hands. You know, we are the movement of existence, and then we fall into the classifications of our inner considerations of this movement of existence. Yet one cannot avoid a moment where the unknown and the known exist together. For me, sometimes when I give these talks, it's as if the idea is there. And sometimes when I give these talks, it's as if the idea is not there, but there is the emotion of importance behind the moment. And for me, I gotta be honest. We don't live one life. We're all existing in two dimensions, a subjective and an objective dimension. The subjective dimension comes across as the observer, the objective dimension comes across as the objects of observance. As if the one seeing the world is different from the world. And I thought about this, certain discrepancies, certain dissonances in the cultures of civilization. I realized that there's a big religious community and there's a big secular community. And the religious community and the secular community are, in some sense, trying to play the idea of like not the one ring to rule them all, the one idea to rule them all. But for me, it was a sort of stepping out of my subjective convictions. Excuse me. I apologize to any gentle ears. But, ladies and gentlemen, our individuality sets the filtration of how we receive the world as a story. How you see yourself standing right now will suggest how the world is standing. And that is so important that our attitude or behavior, as if your mind's ability is to, your mind is like a glass orb, and your free will is your attention and direction into directing this into any environment or any state. Right now, I'm sitting in a room with a computer in front of me. I consider my identity is painted by what the moment has already provided, the reality of the moment. Yet it is also painted by a sort of ability to see the moment as a new moment. And the invention of novelty and the discovery of the future were one of the greatest things that happened for the species. When I say the discovery of the future, because ladies and gentlemen, there was a moment where we like after we became self-aware, it took time. I find the moment this evolutionary creature could individualize itself, could notice it's separate from the world, that's the moment where the subjective evolution began. And the subjective evolution began as if an entrance, an existence, a new existence, as if, seldom this is said, but your attention births your character in every moment. Anyways, one's relationship with thought is their relationship with imagination. And one's relationship with their imagination is how their attention is present in many images at once, as if a nation of images that have been unexplored, you're conscious of a certain of it. So the way I find that the mind comes across to itself is as if like only a corner of this painting is visible. The rest of it is a blur. And in some sense, that's how the unconscious appears to the conscious at the edge of the conscious knowing. And at the edge of the conscious knowing, it's as if you've gone on the edge of this building and you begin to see cars moving down on the street, yet you don't know how to get off this building. Do you see? Most people tend to jump. They want to just be instantly there. They want to, like, they don't want the journey when they have already imagined the outcome's reality. As if when the outcome of something is very important to you, is more important to you than how that outcome arises, then you don't really care for the process. And that's the thing. Many of us in this life begin to have this kind of, I guess, relationship with our future, where an image of us in the future seems to be where the moment should be heading. We feel as if, like, why, if I'm alive once, why should I live a mediocre life? Let me live my best self, my greatest self. Let me attempt greatness while I'm alive. Yet one will see an idea cannot rule existence. Back in the day, there was idol worship, people worshiping idols. Now I'm saying, oh man, it's like it just changed from idols to ideas. Now it's idea worship. As if before we needed physical tools to survive, but now we need mental vision to survive. We need an ability to not only articulate a path through the unknown, but in some sense comprehend the nature of our eyes and how it is revealing nature. You see, as if there's two ways. The thing with religion is that I find that there's a certain point. The reason why many people, religious people, I find that they have a sort of they consider the text to be sacred. When you consider it to be sacred, that means you're granting it an unknown validity. That means you understand you cannot know everything to. It's like you can't know everything to have evidence for it. As if somebody, like a human being right now, creates a time machine, goes back before the ape stood up, and just looks at the ape and tries to communicate to the ape that it should stand up, but the ape is not there yet. As if you put the seed in the soil and expect the tree to be right there. It takes time. And when it takes time, that means there's uncertainties in development. I've had many. I just saw it. It was fascinating. Currently, the way I'm standing on this planet is that I don't acknowledge. Thoughts are means to an expression, but they are not the meaning of the expression. Thoughts are vehicles of attention. They are subjective, extracted creations. When I say extracted, that means there's a way. If I consider matter to be the known, the immaterial will be unknown to me. But if I consider the immaterial known, matter will be unknown to me. And when matter is unknown to me, in some sense, it becomes a situation where it doesn't matter what you believe in or not. It's more like a process of occurrence, a process of involvement. So for me, if somebody comes and says, "What's the meaning of life?" I'll be like, "Listen, you can tell yourself whatever story you want, but after billions of years, there's this evolutionary opportunity where we are the eyes of this universal sector, open in a more sophisticated way than any other species on this planet. We are the aliens of our own planet in intelligence, one could say, in sophistication. And our sophistication has advanced when a sort of community was developed. That means when you see what a major difference between many animals and human beings is that the outcome of their community surpassed the outcome of other animals' communities. As if just like how we have the alpha wolf and the beta wolves, we have like that CEO of that company and all the other people in the company. And so we begin to see how is it that a group, how is it that lions have not started multi-million-dollar businesses? Why is it that the chimpanzee and whatever it was involved with kind of let us here? For me, it's you cannot find truth or be truthful if you see it in some sense somewhere where you're not. If you think right now you're a bad person, the good is a distance away, as if you feel you're not where you need to be, yet you know where you need to be. I find most of civilization will find themselves in such a pattern of morality. But I will tell you this: what if you were not a thought? What would that mean to your habitual system of constantly trying to think of being better? For me, I was like, the law of attraction community is, I understand it. I understand what's going on there. I understand how attention is being enforced towards success. But I will tell you, it's not natural. It's not natural because you can have something come out of nowhere to you, or you can have something which you've been working towards suddenly be received. Fundamentally, what life is this waking attention that sequences its existence through images and ideas and language. As if you can't see the engine of your car because the hood is closed, but you see the engine it's like this whole machine is made to be used. And if we consider the totality of existence, this was kind of like Newton's contribution. It was through the efforts of Newton and many scientists around that era that they began, in some sense, considering this world as a machine that could be studied and can be taken apart, and you can study how the mechanism works. But there's one mistake in the sense that you can take a tiger out of its natural environment, put it in a cage, and then study the tiger, but that is not the real tiger. And in some sense, for me, I feel a lot of us are occupied with unreal notions of self, which, in some sense, blindfold us to the magnificence of the moment. I noticed that life is kind of like you're jumping from dualities to dualities. You're jumping from probabilities of manifestation to different probabilities. And for me, it became fascinating when I began to consider. I remember, like, this was one of those thoughts that I felt I'd kind of like treasure revealed from the unknown. Where it was I suddenly noticed as if like we blink, and so sleep is like how the world is blinking. You know, in some sense, the totality of existence becomes irrelevant to our consciousness because the texture of our consciousness has shifted. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, and if consciousness arises from a certain energy, then one is sleeping, they're still awake in some sense. It's as if, like, if you realize a vehicle is created to serve the driver, then you will, rather than constantly be considered about how the vehicle of your life looks like, you begin concerned about the driver. And this is why I find to any person who attains like first world success, they will eventually come to a point where they're going to ask, what does it all mean? What is the purpose? Why am I alive? Why am I here? Why are their eyes open in existential phenomena? And you will see we're just here to, in some sense, explore. That's what I find. That means you gotta move with the movement, and even if you don't, still there is movement. Life will move you anyways. If you in this moment don't care for anything and you're like, okay, nothing, I don't care about anything, there's no meaning, nothing, you become like a lazy nihilist. If you become a lazy nihilist, you're gonna notice like so much vision and meaning and significance is going to pass you by, because nihilism is a sort of ostrich defense mechanism. Your head is being put in emptiness because you can't confront what the world has to show you. Nature reminds you of your truth when you find the moment being an expression. Just like how in religion they said man was made in the image of God. Your life, or the ideas and the objectivity of your life, its objective phenomena and subjective phenomena, they are made in the reflection of your attention. As if I wondered, holy shit, what if existence is the effect of a cause that in some sense has nothing to do with how the effect turns out? As if the CEO, just makes a phone call and it says sell to like a company division, and has no idea how that person who took the call is going to go and tell everybody to sell. So it becomes very hard, when we try to explore the inner dimensions of our existence and realize it's limited to momentary language architecture. Because if we were living in, if we had what we wanted already, we would not want it. And because I see human beings still wanting to survive, wanting to continue, as if this corner of the world woke up and it doesn't want to close its eyes anytime soon. And when I say that, that means, like, guys, the human being at max, this physical body is going to last you like 100 years, let's say, something like that. But the body, or the collective vision of our species and the world that we're in now and we leave behind, the most important global responsibility is just as if we've booked a certain basketball courtroom, you know, in a gym, and after our time is over, we gotta leave. And how we leave the place, the world, is important to how the world is received. And in some sense, the whole point of the future is to be something that the past can't understand. That means if I take the most sophisticated computer to my grandfather, he's probably gonna like look at it and be like, okay, what is this? You know? A human being can be said is a collection of abilities, which means is a phenomena that can respond to many moments. Right now, if I ask you to move a cup from your table, from one corner of your table to like another corner of your table, imagine, you can instantly do it. But now if I ask you to, in some sense, find your ultimate truth or something, it becomes you're like, yo, it's not like a cup I can move from one location to there. So when you begin to see we want to explore the uncharted territories of our inner existence, it cannot be limited to objective rules because it is more animated than the objective world. That means I could sit here and wonder about many different years in history, but I'll be just in it physically, I'm just in this moment in our time. Language is, let me say it like this. I call these the, the mystical refresh moment. So what I mean by that is there's certain moments in my life where I give ultimate freedom to my doubt. And what my doubt does is try to judge that, try to see if the past, if my current moment aligns with my past understanding. If I was to study this moment, okay, I'd say, all right, so what am I? I see a body here, a physical body. I'm a body that's seeing its body. I acknowledge that. And then I acknowledge that what seems to be looking out through the eyes seems to be a phenomena, a happening. And then when I wonder how this happening happens, I notice this happening has been surviving in accordance to the vision it has had. How much of the world you see suggests how much of the world you can be responsible for. So language is honestly an evolutionary ability. It's like it took us a long time to evolve to be able to have these podcasts, you know? Now that we're here, for me, it's like in a changing world, you can't really have too firm of an agenda. If you do, you'll be a fool. Very simple. If I come and tell you, guys, the story of the world is in this way, everybody believe the story, you know, it's gonna change. I can't control change, yet change controls my decisions. And what change comes to be is how, like, the first set of data you have is sensory data. Once you have understood and it's, in some sense solidified a sort of clear world through your sensory data, that means like there's some people who, like, this is why I say if you're kind of young, you shouldn't really be interested in too much self-inquiry, even though being aware of the notion is helpful. What I mean by that is that you got to first stabilize what physical reality means to you, and then when you wonder about the edges of physical reality, you find the edge of your mind, because your mind is being your moment, whether you like it or not. You know? So language becomes the limbs of the mind to express itself in a way where it has shape, yet it cannot be visible to the biological. That means there's something going on in your moment of being that your senses cannot receive, but it's going on, and there's an awareness of it. Your senses can be said to be the quality of the moment. Our whole language and knowledge and technology and all those people want evidence, unfortunately, they're stuck in the known. That means you care more for what you know than what you don't know. But in life, it'll switch you. When you understand the beautiful architecture and utility of language, yet at the same time, you see this empty building, crumbling as time moves on, you kind of notice like the value of the moment is what was engaged with that led to an efficient vision. I'll tell you guys something that happened. This happened I think it happened months ago. Me and my brother were at this grocery, we went to the supermarket, we walked there, and there was a moment where my brother was asking, my brother is, me and my brother both write science fiction. My brother is an incredible writer, fantasy writer, unbelievable. But I'll tell you this, anyways, we were talking about something, I was explaining something to him. In the middle, we're standing beside the grocery store, and in the middle of me explaining this random guy comes and asks me what is success. I'm not joking. It was so random. And I was in the middle of explaining something really fast to my brother, and in just 2 words popped into my mind, I gave the guy a quick answer, and then I continued explaining what I was explaining to my brother. So imagine I'm saying explain something, and so this guy's like, what is success? Out of nowhere. And I say efficient vision. It's the survival of the most efficient vision. That's what the fittest means. Survival of the fittest doesn't mean you just have jacked arms. Imagine in the future people get robotic arms and they'll be more jacked than you. Vision means your moment that is aware of a self, of a world. How is the intelligence expressing? It's something you can't learn outside of yourself. You kind of contemplate. You kind of cultivate. Cultivate means going through the same experience many times and then understanding more about the overall picture of the overall value. If you really, this is how I say that your true presence is attributeless. There can't be a world for awareness. No, I gotta say that now. The soul cannot be put into a story. That's what I'm saying. Your consciousness cannot be shaped. Your pure awareness to how existence here is, your attention to how your attention is on something cannot be shaped. And you go read the Upanishads, pretty much like a large part of that chapter is just dedicated to this. In the Upanishads, there's this very profound saying. They say neti, neti. Not this, not this. That means these people would constantly explore their reality through meditation, and in those meditations they would come to new findings, yet the teachers would tell them it's not that. It's not, it has nothing to do with what kind of doer you think you are. That's true spirituality. You're not afraid to wonder and explore the unknown. Yet you're not also doing it with a sense of reward. You're not like, yo man, if I get spiritual power, I'll do cool stuff. No. In ancient Vedic culture, they talk about siddhis. They talk about the meditator, the truth seeker, in understanding more of the truth, automatically having abilities that others don't, because the truth seeker sees a reality to the world that others haven't seen yet. So the sadhu that eventually would gain some sort of, they called it mystical power, because the moment the being realizes he's not individual, the power structure and the energy structure shift to an all-encompassing thing. That means right now, let's say if you're a moment of energy, this moment of energy that is aware of itself, based on what part of your moment gains the most significance, your attention. Have you heard this saying? They say attention goes where energy goes, where attention flows. So similarly, your attention is a creative. It's a creative ability. In what comes into your attention, in your automatic response to it, your automatic subconscious response to it, there's already articulation that's begun. That means for me, that moment in a job interview when the person is asking a question, and that moment where the artist has to look at the unknown and draw something out of nowhere, don't be result oriented or you limit your options. So language makes you a result oriented creature. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't care about results, it just means you find the right balance of how your attention moves from the moment it's awake and from the moment it in some sense leaves and goes into the state of deep sleep. My view on language is that it's this like playful. Language is a tool, and as a tool, it exists to those who use it. And language has been able to create a sort of pattern to our memory. It has by choosing to have the sequencing of words important in a certain way, we have established ways to communicate. Let me tell you, if someone was authentically curious or authentically interested to know themselves because they have acknowledged mortality, then it would be crucial to realize that some blindfolds society has put over your eyes, but some blindfolds you have put over your eyes. That means imagine the guy who was doubting belief structures to such a point where he was even doubting doubt, how he believed in doubt. Language is paint. You're going to see at the end of it, it's like, what did you draw? In what ways did your subjective reality orchestrate itself? I've had teachers, outer teachers and inner teachers. Inner teachers were pretty much teachings I received by stopping a certain mode of view within myself. Outer teachers when outer phenomena has led to me changing a mode of view. And right now, whether you like it or not, you function as a modality. That means like, I understand, when you understand why people were like the ego is a trickster and all this in ancient wisdom traditions, you'd also understand like how far the person has understood the opportunity of the moment. Let's say you become enlightened right now. Let's say you're the most super enlightened person in existence right now. Now that you're super enlightened, what next? What next? You'll see it is only engagement that's left. This is why when I speak to people, like anybody who listens to these talks, I consider you an advanced communicator and a pilot of your consciousness. A pilot of consciousness. A being that is navigating their inner plane of existence in accordance to their outer plane of existence. And they're navigating it with the greatest values of both realms acknowledged. That means if you're choosing to see yourself as an idea, you can choose to see any idea. So you automatically go towards the greatest idea. Because, let me tell you, depression is an illusion. It's you just paying more attention to the incapable self. It gets boring. Depression, stress get boring. The easiest way out of depression and stress is to let it continue until you get bored. You're like, okay, how long can I just every day come and just think, oh man, this misery. Like this whole world is not a safe world. We're all spinning on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Okay? That's my motivation of the day. When I wake up, it's like, yeah, on a rock again, empty, like an empty space. A lot of stuff the world doesn't know, and people are occupied with trying to either live for the past or live for what they think the past should be. For me, is I try to say, like, it's okay if I want outwardly world peace. Guess what? Not gonna happen soon. But in my mind, I could sit on a park bench and just wonder if I was in a peaceful world right now, how would it look like? And I realized it would look very creative. And I thought, how many utopians truly acknowledge this? Utopians is a person who in some sense believes that the utopia is the ultimate value. Utopia is a sort of world without challenges. Not without challenges, a world without disturbance. That means, imagine you've sat on a table and you want to write something, everything is peaceful and calm, and then suddenly the earth interrupts you and an earthquake happens. And you're like, God damn it, that moment I came to sit down to write, now the earth is moving. So what I'm saying playfully here is that I feel that we're not just 8 billion bodies, 8 billion and growing just shape like forms. We are 8 billion and growing minds that don't know yet of their true nature or how true they are. As if we find ourselves in a video game. We don't know who created the video game. We don't know, in some sense, how the video game is going to unfold, but we see the video game is active. There's no pause button yet. But during this video game, this character is wondering, am I being moved by like a universal creation, a universal original intelligence, like creator, or am I just me? Like you begin wondering about life as if it's a simulation. And that actually occurs when too much chaos makes you feel the order has no value. That means that person who can't write because he's being disturbed will eventually think, damn, this world doesn't want me to write. You know? And I'll tell you a really nice story. These grandkids want to pull a prank on their grandfather. Their grandfather is sleeping on the couch of the living room, of their grandparents' house. And so these kids are like, all right. They go to that kitchen and they realize there's like this, like very, there's this cheese, this sort of French cheese with an extreme odor. And so they take a bit of cheese and put it on their grandpa's mustache when he's asleep. And they wait. And suddenly the grandpa like opens his eyes and suddenly begins to notice this smell, this terrible smell that has come out of nowhere. And he looks at his kids and he's like, why are these kids like not making trouble right now and being so polite and well-mannered? Like the grandfather's like onto something. It's like, why are these kids being super polite? And the kids are just quietly sitting. And the grandpa's like, my God, this room stinks. And the smell takes his attention away and he goes to another room and he's like, oh my God, this room also stinks. Goes to the kitchen, he's like, oh my God, this house is just disgusting. But he leaves. He leaves, goes to the front door, leaves outside, he's like, okay, I'm gonna get fresh air. And then it's like, oh no, the world stinks. And that's the moral of the story. A tiny problem blinded the ability of that person into acknowledging the whole spectrum. Our beliefs are like that little cheese on our mustache, little stinky cheese on our mustache. If you only function with one belief, guess what? You might see the outcome to it or not. You might see the inevitable, you might not. Yet the presence is here. So the life purpose of your personality is different to how you experience life as a presence. You're a presence of the unknown in the known. You are the mind that has, in some sense, found its voice in matter. We are such pattern-following creatures that if there was some guy just walking on the street and somebody went up to him and gave $1 million, that person, imagine he suddenly somehow he received it, that person would feel as if something divine or something from the unknown or some unbelievable luck occurred. That person would find himself in awe of the unknown, why that occurred. So I'm saying the reason we fall into that reaction is because we are so trying to focus on patterns. Patterns were like the caveman took two rocks, hit them together, sparked fire. And in some sense, we are taking language and sparking fire, the fire of the unknown. A world without sacrifice is an unchanging world. And sacrifice is a conscious activity. Like you sacrifice your time to go do something. You see, we are sacrificial creatures because we have many options. Many values can be attained in the same moment. Yet, what derives this? What really moves us towards our expression throughout the day? And this is what I'm trying to, this is the point pretty much I'm making. I felt it was personality oriented. I thought the way I saw myself was a purpose, as a person, was the way my intelligence moved. Later on, I realized no, be, beneath, or in some sense the substratum, or behind the subtext, the context behind this concept of my personality is nature being active in ways that are unknown and in ways that we have not even put in language. We cannot, because we don't have words for it. I remember the first book that somehow I felt intuitively to publish, and it was kind of a bad, not a bad decision, but it was like I published an unedited work, okay. And anyways, the great work, this idea was the idea that you are alive, and you are a functional creature. And what is the greatest function of your creatureness or creativity? As if you exist, now where does this go? And I conclude that after we have lived for our own stories, once we have been in our own world for long, then we will go and explore. In a changed society, the children of the world must wonder about the eyes of God. They must wonder about the total meaning. Because responsibility is pretty much you wanting to preserve, you wanting to allow something to continue. When the unknown becomes your teacher, your lessons are not about how much you know. Your lessons become performance oriented and self awareness oriented. Your awareness to yourself is your most immediate intelligence, rather than the self you want to be or become aware of in the future. Language is it can be it's language has language is a bridge between inner realities. And these inner realities are as evolved as they're aware of the whole picture, or as aware they are of the current problems of existence. When I see a child, like when you look at a kid, I remember, like, I'm Persian, in these Persian family gatherings, I was looking at one of my cousins and I was like, I have no, like, what kind of human being is he going to end up being? What kind of person, what kind of decisions will this moment of intelligence go on to contribute to humanity? And that's the thing about nature. This is why I say you will come to be playful when you become really self-aware. Because the self moves in accordance to the universe. And to abide by the universe means to stop the inner resistance and outer resistance and become a sort of watcher of a great happening. And then you will be fascinated all the time. You will see how your mind treats you rather than how you've been treating your mind. We are a natural intelligence. We simulated, we created language. That language became a really something our attention is now, in some sense, bound to. As it is bound to, it will find itself inevitably okay. What do I do with the words I know? I, in some sense, try to find the worlds I don't know. When you become a commander of your moment, you have to take a commander attitude with your inner reality. What that means is whatever knowledge you have to find your intelligence is as up to date as your application of your knowledge. And so the value of a lifetime, if it's performance oriented, the personality will have a more a simpler, efficient way to discover its true presence. Because whether you think it's all God, whether you think it's all nature, or whether you think it's just you, regardless of the reliance to the imagery for truth, the presence of truth, which is an instant recognition, as if instantly you are aware, instantly you leave the basement of illusion and your phone has signal. For me, my relationship with my past is that if I'm paying attention to it too much, I miss out on the moment. That's it. All right, guys, I guess this is enough for this talk. I don't see anybody in the live stream, but I'm not really sure what the best way is to get the audience engaged, to be honest. Because I'll tell you this, I have this vision where hopefully in the future I'm going to be drawn towards this idea. Maybe it's written in the stars for me, maybe it's not. But I would like to create another school of Athens. I want to create the next school of Athens. And what that means is like this place called School of Athens 2.0, where people from around the world could come and introduce ideology, but be also willing to debate, to have ideology clash. Because for me, like when you look at ancient philosophy, Plato, Diogenes would come and, in some sense, challenge Plato often. So, in some sense, your challenger, the one who's challenging you, is also teaching you of the levels of performance that can be attained. Only fools have enemies. The reason is because the wise man does not see an enemy and does not per se see an ally, sees phenomena, learns from the world before it is shaped by its own shaping mechanism. I guess I'm going to start leaving a question if the audience wants to answer. I'm going to leave it where? In the comment section. What's a good question to ask? Here. Can truth be remembered, or must it only be discovered? Could a remembrance also be a discovery? Or is the moment so changing that all values, all fixed values are void? All right, guys. Okay, I wrote something in the comment section. This is just a question I'm asking, but anything that comes to your mind, just let ideas flow. You don't have to always It's kind of like you're an intelligent creature. Just allow yourself to engage with the question, and your intelligence naturally arises. Trust me, your consciousness in the sophisticated of your neurology is waving. It's like ocean waves. you, anyways. Thanks for listening, guys. I probably have to edit these, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with the videos, but thanks for tuning in. Let's press into this.